How many years have come and gone since that day? How many years have I waited for this moment? For the one that stood alone against the storm. For the one they called the Warrior of Light. Become what you must. Become the Warrior of Darkness.
Good day everybody. I know this isn't the promised World of Final Fantasy video that I said I would make at the end of the first Nier review. However, a lot has happened since then, and the kind of video I wanted to make has changed. And it's my hope with this I can interest at least one or two of you into trying this game, cause I really don't think you'll be disappointed. For those who don't know, Final Fantasy XIV is a high fantasy MMO that initially came out in 2010, where you take the role of the Warrior of Light, whose general mission in life is to go around the realm, take on the big bad, and make the world around them a better place than they left it. You know, general fantasy protagonist stuff. Now, to understand what makes 14 so special, we need to take a look back at the game's hectic development for a moment. As when I mentioned its initial release in 2010, that version of the game was wrought with problem after problem after problem. However, I won't go too deep into why the initial version of the game was so problematic, as so many others have done that and more, so I'll recommend you watch their videos, as it's very interesting, especially if you're into game design, so I'll include those videos in the doobly-doo below. To make a very long story short, they tried to fix the initial version of the game with various patches. However, it was way too late to fix the game, so they decided to rebuild it from the ground up with a new director helming the new project. That's where our main man of the hour, Naoki Yoshida, comes in, or Yoshi P as he's known. This man right here, this beautiful man, is one of my game design heroes, right next to Hideo Kojima, Yoko Taro, Toby Fox, Sakurai, etc. Yoshi P knew from the start that rebuilding 14 was going to be a project of epic proportions, and as such, the termination of the game's old build had to be equally epic. As such, he made the Red Moon that was slowly making its way to Eorzea over the course of several patches explode and release fucking Bahamut, who just began literally tearing the world to shreds in an amazing marketing move, as this is the last sight that Final Fantasy XIV players of old witnessed. This destruction firsthand only for it to become a trailer for the new version aptly named A Realm Reborn. A few months passed, and the game as we know it today was released in 2013. Not without its own issues, mind you, but it seemed like 14 had finally cemented itself as an invaluable game, not just as a Final Fantasy game, but as an MMO, and has since had 3 critically acclaimed expansions, with the 4th one coming very soon. As to what keeps bringing me back to this game, as while I love it and want to experience all that the world has to offer, every so often I become burned out and have to take a month or two off the game to recharge the old MMO batteries. However, unlike many other games I take breaks from, sooner or later I'll be drawn back to 14 as if no time has passed at all, much like visiting a best friend after months of not seeing her. And the quality that keeps drawing back to this wonderful game is that the game has heart. It's so easy to love each and every character you meet along the way, which for me is rare in a game, as there are always 1 or 2 characters I couldn't care less about, like Amarant or Quina from Final Fantasy IX. But for the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, I came to care for each and every one of them, as their personal stakes in the fight to keep the realm safe become more clear as the story unravels. Take Oriange for example. At the start of the game, he wasn't much of a character, to be honest. He just sort of showed up as a funny talking exposition machine and returned to the shadows for several plot threads. But after the events of A Realm Reborn, he quickly became one of my favorite characters, as the story began focusing on his pain and the loss of his loved one during a time where he had no access to the support of his friends. And I was honestly scared that he would turn to the side of darkness, but I'll let you play the game so you can understand what happened to him firsthand. Hell, even the villains, the Ascians, have heart, especially the main antagonist of Shadowbringers, one Emmett Selk, for reasons I can't really go into without spoiling everything. Just know this expansion had me questioning what I knew was right and wrong in the context of this universe, and if what we've been fighting for so far can truly be called evil. You can truly feel throughout this whole story and gameplay experience the heart and soul Yoshi P put into this game, as the most important quality in any game director to me is his genuine love and care for both the game he directed and the players of said game. There's this one press conference that Yoshida took part in shortly after A Realm Reborn was released. At the time, it had many server issues, and it was negatively impacting the game as a whole. The game that he worked so hard to save, and feeling the weight of having to fix what was a bad game and miraculously make it good, it must have taken a toll on him. What I want to draw attention to in this part of the conference is where he apologizes to the players for the negative experience. At that moment, he just couldn't hold back the tears, and in that moment, a piece of my humanity was restored. As in response to how much love this man put into the game, he received not awkward silence, but a round of applause from the audience who were so grateful for all the time and effort him and his team put into the game.
ファイナルファンタジー14を、引き継ぐことになってもうすぐ3年になります。
And I was right there with them, clapping my hands with tears in my eyes because, hey, I'm just a big sap, y'all. What I'm trying to say is all of his history and experience the 14's development team went through comes through beautifully in the gameplay and story. Speaking of the gameplay, it also has a heart, or rather a soul, as there are many classes or jobs to pick from. Whether you want a fiery DPS, an astrological healer, there is something here for everybody. And you need not be locked into one single class, you can unlock more as the game goes. With my personal favorite being my Gunbreak of the Era. I mean, just look at my baby. Oh, so beautiful. Mwah. There's one more facet of this game I'd like to address before I conclude the video, and it's this game's unbelievably amazing soundtrack. Composed by many individuals, but one I'd like to address is Masayoshi Soken. As many of you know, 2020 was an insanely hard year for everybody, but for him, it just kept getting worse and worse. As during the pandemic, Soken was diagnosed with cancer. He was receiving chemotherapy and thankfully went into remission, but those months of unknowable pain, discomfort, and loneliness, both physically and mentally, would have broken a lesser person. But through his suffering, he trudged on and continued doing what he does best, and composed the concluding tracks for the Shadowbringers storyline. And I'd like to play an excerpt of those songs as they've become some of my favorite in the entire game. While I've tried to keep this video relatively spoiler-free, there's this one scene at the end of Shadowbringers that essentially sums up all of my feelings in the game, and has that quality that keeps drawing me back, and I heavily recommend you play the game before watching the rest of this video, as it is a moment with so much heart that it can bring me to tears every time I see it. At the moment, A Realm Reborn and the first expansion, Heavensward, are completely free of charge to play, and you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't at least give the game a shot. Either way, I thank you for watching and I hope to meet you in Eorzea someday.
I concede I may have overexerted myself. Steady now and listen. I told you before that I had a plan, and that when all is said and done, I would ask a favor of you. We have averted the 8th Umbral Calamity, found a way for everyone to return to the source, and, last but not least, we have secured the future of all the people of Norvrand. We have won, my friend. So So, I hope you'll forgive me this moment of selfishness, and while I wouldn't want you to feel obliged, promise me you'll take me on your next adventure. A journey. Together. That's all I ask. If I were to tell you that this isn't the end, that we will meet again, would you believe me?